Okay, so let's say now finally we have the dimensions of the canvas that we want for our page. So how do we actually put stuff onto this big white square? And that is an excellent question. Um, that's basically most of what Photoshop is. It's just putting stuff in this big white square. So um, let's just go down the list of tools in the toolbar and start from there. So the next one up from our lovely Move tool is the Marquee tool, rectangular Marquee tool. The hotkey for that one is M. So if I hit that, or if I go and click on it, then it gives me the capability to click and drag to make uh, just this marching ant square thing that you see. And we can see too, it has another little tag on it that says the width and the height of the square that we're making. So let's say I want it to be this size, I will let go, and this stays behind this the square with the dimensions that we want. Um, and there's not much we can do with this as it is, but it's more to do with selecting things on a page. So say, I had something on here and I just wanted to take this part of it. That's kind of what the rectangular marquee tool is for. If we go back to the tool over here and we hold down, we can see that there is an elliptical marquee tool that is basically the same concept. So sorry, when you don't do anything to your marquee tool and you click away from it, it'll disappear. So because I didn't do anything to it, I just made it. If I click anything else, it will disappear. Um, so now I have the elliptical, the circle one selected. So I will click and drag, and it's the exact same principle, the little marching ants guys. Let go, and it leaves it on the page. And if I click anywhere else, it will disappear. Fun little trick, if you want the circle to be a perfect circle, what you do is when you're clicking and dragging or at any point, you just press the shift key on your keyboard and it will always constrain the proportions so that it makes a perfect circle, which is really handy to have because it's hard for human beings to draw a perfect circle. So the same thing works with the rectangular marquee tool, of course. I hit shift and it makes me a perfect square. So that's really nice. I don't have to sit and kind of like figure it out pixel by pixel and everything. You just press shift and it does it for you. Another tool in there is the single row marquee tool. I have been using Photoshop for a long time. I have never used this tool, so if that's, I think it just makes like a line across your page. Seems to be what's happening. Let's see when we hold shift. Just still a line. So yeah, it makes a line across your page. That would be, I guess, for if you wanted to select maybe half of the page or something. You can just hit that tool and it's done. And a single column marquee tool is the same thing, but it is horizontal? No, vertical. Vertical, yes. So we can put one here in the middle of the page, and this tool is better illustrated, I think, if you have an image already. So let's say I'm using this one. We're going to use the marquee tool, and I put a square, and it's going to select this part of this image. And you can move it around. You just have to click inside the square and you can move it around on your page. Let's say I just want to select her eye. And what's really fun is when you couple the marquee tool with the move tool, they kind of go together very well. So our famous move tool, I'm going to click on it here, and now it takes that part that we selected and cuts it out. And we can move it around with the move tool. So they work together very well. And I'm gonna Control Z that to step back because that looks kind of weird. Now her eye's back on. So I'm gonna hit the M to turn on the marquee tool again, and we can drag it around the page and hit the V tool, move it here. We can select this part. Now, be careful with this though, because Photoshop is to be used always with layers. You always want to use layers. Pretty much anytime you put something on your page or change anything, you want to use a new layer for it. And that is because the magic of Photoshop is that you don't have to commit to anything. If you keep layers, you can always go back and change things. You don't have to, you can leave things the way they are. You can use it again. It's very kind of malleable in that way. So always be using layers. So what I can do here now is take this image and I'm gonna hit the Marquee tool again, select her eye, whatever, and I'm going to left click, right click, just the whatever one's not the main click button, and it gives me all these options to use with the Marquee tool. I can deselect, select inverse, that'll select everything but what I selected. Deselect turns it off. So let's see what else. Feather is if you don't want it to be a really hard edge, like it's going to be a complete cut line. But if we hit feather, it'll feather the radius 5 pixels or whatever pixels you want. Let's say for display 10 pixels. And now when I go to hit V and move this around, you see it's not like a cut line, it's like more of a faded line. So that's what feather does. I'm going to put that back on, step backwards here, just hit Control Z. And if you want to step back more than once, you hit Control Alt Z. And that's something that I use a lot. You can hit Control Alt Z many times and it'll just keep stepping back. But like I said, there is a limit to how many times you can step back. Okay, so what else is there in here? Oh, okay, yeah, right. I don't have the Marquee tool selected, so it's not letting me use the, so here, Marquee tool, and I click, I should look into this, right click, I right click, and I can hit Refine Edge, and this is kind of like the same thing as the Feather tool, but it gives me more options to kind of play around with how much I want the feathering to be, contrast, so like the difference between the edges here, you can shift the edge, move it around. We can look more into that later because this is something that I do use quite a bit, the feather tool. So for now we're going to cancel that, and I can save selection, and that will not save what is in the selection, but it will save the selection itself. So it'll save this little marching ant square that I want, but I don't often save selection, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. You can make work path. This is not something that I do. Oh, okay. This basically turns it not into the marching ants anymore, but it turns it into something that Photoshop recognizes as like a shape. So we can look more into that later, the shapes. And here, this is kind of the meat of what you use a lot with the Marquee tool. You can do layer via copy, layer via cut. I use these a lot. I like to do layer via copy because it keeps all of the stuff going on in the background. So you can see here, all I did was hit layer via copy and this new layer popped up, layer 2, and you can't tell that anything is different because it's exactly the same thing. But if I go and hit the V and use my move tool, we can see that another layer has been created and it's on layer 2 here, but my image itself has not been changed. So that's nice. I always want to keep layer 1 as it is. You never really want to mess with your initial file because you might need to go back, you might need to make changes, you never really know. So try to leave layer 1 untouched if possible. And a way to get around that is you can go to layer 1 and click on duplicate layer, and then you just hit OK, and it'll make the exact same layer that you have as the one underneath. It's just the exact same one, it's sitting over top, but again I hit the move tool and we can see that another layer has been created underneath, and now I can mess around with layer 1 copy and I don't have to worry about messing up my initial image. So that's what you use. I use mostly the Marquee tool for you know, layer via cut or layer via copy. If you do want to cut it out, you can hit layer via cut, that's fine, but again, you don't want to mess with the image. And that's pretty much what you're going to use the Marquee tool for the most part.